It's time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. It is an Articles of News episode. He's returned not from the dead, but I don't know where he's been. Somewhere else. That's where he was. It's Mr. Mayor. Hello, sir.
Howdy. It's been a few weeks, hasn't it?
What's
Man,
your
almost
deal? What's going on? You look great. Your hair is sharp. It's on point.
right there. It's there.
Yeah.
Doing well. I now have a two in front. I don't know if I said this before. I have a two in front of my weight.
There you go. There
So
you
I
go.
started at 397 almost a year ago, about a year ago. I'm now 296,
But
7, so about 100
that's
pounds.
just a number on the scale, Andrew. How do you
That's right.
feel? How do you
I
feel?
do feel really good. I
Yeah.
feel like it's nice to go for a walk with my dog, and when I
Mhm.
hit the hills, can still talk to my wife the whole way up
Look
without
at you.
getting all winded and everything else. So things like that, it's really nice.
Are you tired?
Um,
Are you at that point yet where you're tired of everyone talking to you about your weight?
uh, I get tired, but then it kind of comes in waves.
Okay.
Whenever I have a new milestone, on recently crossing over that 100 pound milestone, I'm happy to talk about that. Then I'll get sick of it in a week or two.
Have you done sorry, so many questions about this, even after saying, are you sick of talking about it? Have you done the fashion revive, re-show,
A
have you?
little bit, mostly going to Goodwill. I've
Okay.
had to. In fact, it was I think the last time I was on, I looked like I had uh, a pastor. Because my shirt was so hanging down so low, it looked like I was a pastor. So I had a black shirt on. So I've gone out and I bought some smaller shirts from Goodwill. I've bought a few new pairs of pants. I had to buy several new belts. I got belts that instead of having to drill holes in them all the time, I got that they are kind of adjustable and stuff to kind of get me through the next few months, because it's gonna keep changing. So I didn't want to like go out and buy brand new clothes and then have to buy them in a few more months again. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a whole like theory and way of thinking as far as that goes, right? Aren't there some people that would say, no, go get yourself something nice in the size that you're at right now, have an outfit, and then as it continues to adjust, then you have another outfit, or are you just, you're like, no,
yeah, it
listen, I'm not.
doesn't seem practical to me. I think I would feel dumb wearing something that I'm not going to be able to fit into soon. In fact, I bought one shirt for my trip coming up, and I think I bought it. I bought it at one size, and I'm already kind of regretting it. I'm like, I think it's going to be too big by the time we go on the trip.
Well,
But
that's
that's just one shirt.
yeah. Yeah. And you know what? You're worth it. You're worth the one shirt.
I'm worth the one shirt.
Was it a Hawaiian shirt? Be honest.
No, it was a yellow shirt though.
Okay. So like a Hawaiian
Nice,
shirt.
nice bright yellow, so everyone knows that I'm walking down.
Look, it's me. I'm walking. What's going on? Let me ask you this. Anything else going on? Anything else exciting? Things that have occurred recently? Let's not have it be weight centric. Anything that might be like,
Nothing made. Well, yes. So there's a few things. I've been traveling more,
okay, for
with
work
work
or
for
just for
work. Yeah,
pleasure. Okay.
no, just for work.
Okay.
I'll mention one weight thing. It's nice to get on a plane and have room in the seat belt.
Uh-huh.
like literally, like I don't have to like just barely like for a long time I wouldn't use an extension, but it was because I would just like suck in and just pull it and just live that way. I now have a gap between the if I want to with that, so that's a nice thing. No, but I went to Dallas. That's just a drive, and then I went up to Nashville, and I learned that hot chicken is
Mhm.
wonderful on the tongue,
Oh
but
yeah.
not in the belly after you've had surgery like this.
It's great for
Oh
the
man,
tongue, but not for the belly.
it messed me up
Ooh.
so bad for about
Ooh.
5 days, and
Ooh.
I can't eat very much of it, so it's not like I like had this big amount of hot chicken, but it messed me up really bad. Um,
So
and I only
so
got
so if
getting
it's
over
not
it today.
so if it's not the quantity, is it just because of its temperament?
I think it's the spice. Like
Huh.
I love hot stuff,
Not
so
anymore.
I may have a hard time. I might have to. Again, I'm still relatively close to surgery, so
It might
it
tame
might be
down.
that. So we'll just have to see. I think I just won't do. I think I'll try these things when I'm at home as opposed to being on the road. But the other thing about being on the road is I am I have got my book will be coming out. My new book will be coming out this year, and so
Mhm.
I've made inroads towards getting that getting that done. And
Because
I've
when you're out on the road, you're able to work more, you can focus, lock in, and
Yeah,
write. Is
because
that the deal?
I usually spend more time writing in a hotel because I'm
Sure.
just kind of there's nothing else to think about. There's no church calling or anything. I usually spend at least an hour before I start watching Netflix or whatever. Um, and once you kind of get on a roll, then it just kind of gets going. So now, even though I'm home, I'm writing more at home. So it just kind of jump started that. So that'll be coming out in December. I mean, I've had it I've had it planned out to come out then anyway, but it's nice to have a jump start and kind of get pushed through.
I want to ask you this, and I know I said I'd leave it alone, but do you know technically what the limitations for a COS on a plane is?
What's
Do you
a
know what that is?
COS?
COS is a customer of size.
No, I don't know for I know I've been asked sometimes if I need 2 seats, and I told them no, and it made me feel bad
Uh-huh.
every time
Y-
they would ask. But it made me feel bad because it pointed out that I was a customer size. So I don't know that the deal. What I would do is I just curl up like this and try to stay off someone else.
You'd swaddle yourself so that you didn't.
I always sit in the window seat and I
Mhm.
lean way over because I didn't want to bother anyone
Sure.
else next to me. I also have strategies for because I fly Southwest mostly for how if there is open seats, how to well, first of all, I'm a big guy, but how to keep someone from sitting in the middle seat next to me
Mhm.
if there's
Mhm.
open seats.
How is that?
So,
Tell, please share.
so well, I know that my size would make people go, "Oh, I don't know if I want to sit next to
Yeah.
that guy." So I would
There's no
sit in
other
my
seats,
seat
so I'll go
while
there. But
people are choosing. I sit really big, making it not fun. And and it's where you choose to sit too. So right in the row right in front of the exit row seats,
uh-huh.
no one really no everyone wants to go past it. They want to see the exit row seats, and then when they see me, they're like, "Oh, let's see if there's something at the back of the plane." By the time everyone's gone to the back of the plane, I'm probably one of the last places that it's only if there's nowhere else to sit do they come back up and go, well, I guess I got to sit there.
Yeah.
So I have a whole strategy of how that works, and I still do it because it's in my mind that that's what I do, and I was kind of annoyed on one of my flights. Oh, I have to have someone sit next to me, and then it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So because it's not a big deal anymore. So it's yeah, I'm not as but when I was 397 pounds, it was a big deal. It made sure that my flight was very uncomfortable because I worry about them and I worry about me and then I curl up.
Isn't it crazy the things like the secondhand things that you worried about or
Oh yeah.
that
That's
are now
still I still
benefits?
worry
Yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I realized there's nothing to worry about anymore. There's not a
I
big deal.
I also think it's pretty funny that your way to fend off other passengers sitting next to you on a plane is also similar to how you fend off a mountain lion. Make yourself big.
Make yourself really big. Stay away. I want to make it seem like I'm gonna spill over to their seat, even though when they actually get there, I'm really gonna curl up and I make sure there's no spillage over into their side.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so
I'm glad to hear about your journey. As you come to this general conference now, just less than a week away, let me ask you this: do you have any sort of eating traditions that are going to be affected because of what's going on as far as general conference goes? Because
so
I know that
general conference,
it's
we've
like
never
this.
had eating traditions
It's
here.
like the Super Bowl for
Mhm.
most members of the church, right? It's cinnamon rolls for breakfast, and then it's the French toast buffet for the second session, and then it's ice cream after the third session, and we just eat all weekend long.
No, we don't really have any traditions. I think because I don't have kids,
Hmm.
so we've never made it a thing. So
Hmm.
it's usually cereal for breakfast if that's what and then it's usually what do you want for lunch? But that's that. That's what do
Yeah,
you want? I don't know. What do you want?
yeah,
I don't know. You do that for a
yeah.
while. And then well, I'll usually do a normal Sunday dinner. But yeah, nothing major.
And
And
be
so it's I don't have many options now. And this year I probably will be doing something small because there's a fellow who joined the church, a fellow of disability has he's differently abled, joined the church a few years ago in our area, and I'm gonna let him come to our house for general conference on the Sunday. Um, and so he'll have to deal with the fact that I'll be tweeting in the afternoon on
That's right.
Sunday. That's
Sunday
right.
afternoon. Be sure you follow the Cultural Hall at the Cultural Hall on Twitter all weekend long. And in fact, wrapping up to it as well, we will be tweeting the various sessions, our hot takes, our mild takes, our cold takes.
So I will be making chicken wings mostly because we have something to feed him. I'll probably eat one, maybe two. That's most I'll do.
Just make sure that they're actual chicken wings so that you don't get sued, because otherwise they're just chicken nuggets.
Yeah, no, they have bones in them.
Yeah. They have to have bones in them in order.
And I made sure they were mild. These are not buffalo. After Nashville hot chicken, these are going to be mild.
With that. Yeah. I've got to tell you about this. So my wife, not a member of the church, giving me a hard time the other day about the word of wisdom, which was a fun discussion. Because so she recently she purchased herself a fancy espresso machine, the whir and the the whole thing. And she's like, I am passionate about this coffee and I would love it if you would drink this coffee with me. And I said, I appreciate the passion of which you have for it. I won't be doing that. And she's like, oh yeah, no, go ahead. Drink your pre-workout. How many milligrams of caffeine is this? Oh, I'm sure that's healthy for you. Yeah, no.
So that's that's the question, right? Is it a health code or is it something else?
Right. So we had a much larger sort of philosophical conversation around it all, in which I was quoted saying something like, I don't think that when I get to heaven that God is going to embrace me and say, oh, I'm so glad you didn't drink coffee. That is not my belief. That is not what I adhere to. That is not why I do it. It is not anything like that. But I appreciate those conversations that occur within the walls of my home, because it does. And to her point, she brought up various points about it. Because of the smoker which resides in my backyard, I eat an incredible amount of meat, specifically red meat, and I just need to not anymore. It as much as I like to pretend that I can still eat like a 5-year-old, I can't. And those things have impact, have effects, and so
I eat far less red meat than I ever have. This was the word keeping me on the word of wisdom surgery, I guess.
Yeah, that's all.
That's all it was. Yeah.
You just needed the assist. It was close. You were thinking about walking.
Well, it's because I can eat the like ground beef, but anything so far, anything that's really dense, like steak, it just kind of messes me up. So
really,
and breads mess me up. So even though technically the doctor don't have any restrictions anymore, I have personal restrictions.
Good.
But to your point on the word of wisdom, I would really love to know everyone's opinion on this. And I think we've had other episodes on this, but
sure.
I personally don't. I think that there's health benefits from the word of wisdom, but I don't think it's a law of health. It says it right in it. It's not a law of health. There's no law that is temporal in nature. It is, and I learned this more, I think, once I started leaving Utah. And in Utah, I never had to explain myself, and so because and I didn't even have to think through it. I just did it. It's just what I did. And then now, people will ask me, and if it's easier for people to get that I've done this to set myself apart from the world and to build my relationship with our Heavenly Father through a covenant and through sacrifice, than it is for me to say not drinking coffee is healthier. Because as I'm sitting chugging down, all this Mountain Dew, which I don't do anymore, or all this steak and all this unhealthy food, I'm sitting. What do I have to lecture someone else on? Whether coffee is healthy or not. And truthfully, I don't see very much about coffee that is unhealthy, right? Unless you're adding a lot of sugar to it, and I know there's
cream, all the
additives and things like that. But the caffeine, I know, is a problem. But if the caffeine's a problem, then we should have a caffeine problem everywhere, right?
Sure. And then I can remember as a missionary, it's like, oh, it's the tannic this, it's the acid that, and it's just like, ultimately, you either think it's a thing that God wants you to do or not. That's
And
I'm getting
depending
to
on
the
what
end of the day.
year you're in, the eggs might be worse than coffee, or they might be the best thing for you, depending
Yeah,
on what science
right.
report is coming out now.
You can send those emails, contact@theculturalhall.com. Worth noting, a recent article that a study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that on average, 57% of children up to 5 years old are drinking sugary beverages at least once a week. And the Beehive State is above the national average, with 66% of kids consuming
Well,
sugar added drinks
you
once
guys
a
have
week.
like places that just for those drinks,
Mm-hmm.
Fizz, and what are some of the other
Yeah.
ones that you have? The dirty sodas. I mean, that's just a ton of
Well,
sugar right
well,
there.
and the thing for me is okay, but you can't, if you find yourself, you're dropping your kids off at the school and then you're getting in line at the whatever, you can't turn your nose up at the people that,
Right.
do other things, right? Like it is the same.
Like when I used to drink soda so much, I one time saw how when a rat in a cage keeps hitting the button.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm walking up to the soda machine and hitting that thing, I felt like a rat in a cage so many times, because I like, there were times when I was like, I'm like, well, I can't even finish the day without getting something. It's
Yeah.
the only way I could make it through the day, and that's just as much addictive as whether it's sugar or caffeine or anything else. So if that, you definitely can't turn your nose up to someone who's got it, especially 397 pounds overweight, or so
Yep.
it's just a different way to look at it.
And because my brain works this way, I can't leave what you said alone without saying, despite all your rage, you are still just a rat in a cage. Right.
Well, as I said it, I was singing the song in my head. Nice
Let's take
Smashing
it.
Pumpkins song.
Let's take a break. Okay, wait. Actually, I'm going to tell you this funny story. So when I was 15 years old, I asked this girl out that I always wanted to go on a date with, and I had floor tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins at the Delta Center. And I asked her out on a date, and this was early in my dating because obviously I was only 15 years old and shouldn't have been dating. And secondarily, I didn't pick her up. So I called her from a payphone at the Delta Center, and I was like, "Hey, concert's going on pretty quick. Are you going to come?" And she's like, "I don't have a ride." And I was like, "Well, I got you a ticket. Get down here." She ended up not coming. A wasted floor seat to the Smashing Pumpkins at the Delta Center because
You didn't bother to figure out how she was
I,
going to get there.
I was,
You were 15.
yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know. And that, everyone, that is why God didn't want me dating. Let's take a break. We'll come back and do the actual articles of news. Here in the second block, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter. And away we go. Coming up in the third block, by the way, Temple Ticker, including some predictions as far as temples that will be announced during General Conference. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time. We're going to only allow a certain amount to be guessed. That way we can have actual percentages and be able to bet a little bit of money on it. So if you also have any General Conference predictions, Andrew, at the end of our little bit, I'll ask you about those. Giving you that heads up. I normally don't do that. I'm feeling generous.
All right. I don't know if I have any, but I'll think of someone for them.
The first news story I want to share, if you've never seen this before, if you go to the Utah State Capitol, inside there is the Mormon meteor. Now you might think, well, wait, shouldn't it be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints meteor? No, it is because it was named in that time a fast car. Now people, I don't think realize this, but the Salt Flats are actually world renowned. The Great Salt Lake Flats. It is a place where land speed records have been created aplenty. And most recently, the Mormon meteor was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame at the Daytona Speedway out in Daytona Beach. So,
It's also the name of an unfortunate woman's shoe. Salt Flats. Sorry.
Oh, interesting.
I'm just kidding. It's not real. I was joking.
Boo. You interrupted that for that. I want you to put your head down, and I want you to listen to the rest of this. Al Jenkins.
I'm very, very proud of it, actually, of how stupid it was. So go ahead.
Ab Jenkins, or maybe it's Abe, but it's spelled A-B. So I'm going to say that it's, well, let's call him Abe. Let's call him Abe for the sake of this. He drove the Mormon Meteor 3, 3 different versions. It has now been inducted into the Motor Sports Hall of Fame. It's a cool car. The reason why I brought up the state capitol is one of the versions of those cars is there on display for you to be able to check out. And if you can go quick, the Utah Highway Patrol won't yell at you for touching it, but you're not actually allowed to touch it. So you can check that out at the Utah State Capitol. I thought this was sort of interesting. This is just a real quick story about Facebook spying on conversations. You have this belief that Facebook is always listening to your phone?
I do. I know
Yeah,
they are.
yeah, I know they are too.
I know, like the other day I was talking about something I needed for our trip that was coming up, and I needed to go look at a few different options. And when I went to Facebook, ads came up with several different options, and I clicked them because I was interested in it because but I had just been talking about it.
Yeah. So even though Facebook allowed to listen to our microphone, they say, and Mark Zuckerberg has testified as much. Nope, no, that isn't what happens. That isn't what happens. But there was a story recently that has a church angle to it. The user on TikTok, Jasmine, who goes by Jazzy, noticed an ad about Mormonism in her Facebook feed shortly after discussing the topic with her mom and a family friend. She says, quote, "I don't know much about it, but I've heard of it before. And I've never Googled the word Mormon, and I have never searched the word Mormon on Facebook either. Never, never, never. And what do you think pops up in my feed on Facebook today? A Mormon ad," she said. She alleged that while Facebook ex promised the app doesn't listen to conversations, they're lying. They're big freaking liars. She didn't say freaking. After claiming to receive a targeted ad, she says, she goes on to say that, well, I know they're listening, even though they say they're not listening. She's not the first to claim and certainly won't be the last. But, I say maybe it's divine intervention. Maybe she didn't know what ad she needed, and the algorithm is just presenting her with an opportunity. She didn't look for the miracles in her life, but she says Facebook is listening to her conversation.
unless she also followed up with maybe a search or bit too about, because that, we know if you search on Google, you're going to see the ads on Facebook. That is
Sure.
That is something they're not shying away from.
Sure. Yeah, you get the little I can't think of what it's called right off the top of my head, but there's a little cookie that gets if you go on Google, and then if you show up on Facebook, it goes boop, they're here.
But it might also be a more kind of around the way. Maybe Facebook directly isn't listening to your ads, but they tie into something else that is, like Google.
Yeah,
or something else that might do. I don't know. But we are definitely being listened to everywhere.
And then lastly, this, as far as my little first chunk of news, there is a Mormon Women's History Cruise. All aboard. They're expecting you, the women's cruise.
What if I just go on a cruise and read about Mormon women's history?
Well, it's not just reading, it is presentations. It is by two organizers, historians Lori Maffley Kipp and Carrie Ann Deloach, neither of which have been guests of the Cultural Hall. Shame on us. They have
reach out.
History. What's that?
You should reach out.
I'm going to. They were part of a group that had a women's history consultation and the Neil A. Maxwell Institute. The funding for that group ended, so they decided to take it to the ocean. The prices are reasonable, and you can find a link for this in the show notes, starting at $627 for a 4-day cruise on Royal Caribbean Independence of the Seas. It includes a shared inside cabin, meals on the ship, and
where does it start? California, Galveston, or Florida?
My guess
or Seattle.
My guess, because it is Bahamas, I would say Florida.
Florida.
Yep. I would imagine.
Yeah, because everything in Galveston would be like Western Caribbean.
Yeah. So if you like women's history, and you like cruising, and you like the Bahamas, might be a great opportunity for you. What do you have?
Well, so something that's been concerning a lot of people there in Utah, and me whenever I fly home and I'm flying in and I see the Great Salt Lake becoming mostly non-existent, or it feels
Mm-hmm.
that way anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It shrinks and shrinks, and and then I watched the news report recently about how, as it moving, it's possibly going to release all this arsenic into the atmosphere, and could be really toxic and cause a lot of problems as it goes down. The church this week has agreed and is donating 20,000 acre feet of water rights back to the to the to be able to be rediverted into the Great Salt Lake, which is a big deal because that's one of the major. A lot of people think the drought's the problem, and the drought is a problem, but the underlying problem is that we are using so much water
Mm-hmm.
for agricultural and for our lawns and for everything that you do in Utah, that it is diminished the flow into the Great Salt Lake so significantly that when you do have a drought, it's not like droughts in 30, 40 years ago, or even 100 years ago, which were not great. These droughts now deplete it, and to the point that it might just go away completely, and it's nearing that right now. So diverting all this water to it is a big deal. So it's bad. That it's not having the Great Salt Lake is bad for wildlife. It's bad for everything, and it's
Yep.
gonna it's so part of our history too, and the way we look at things. So, how do you feel about that? Like, are you concerned about that? Is that something that's a big deal for you?
Well, I think that it's increasingly a big deal here in the valley. The thing and I think it's great, and the equivalent of what the church donated for people that know the state of Utah and know Little Dell Reservoir, that's the equivalent of water that they sort of donated, which is, no small parcel of water. The
It's
the
not
thing,
enough, but it's
yeah,
still
yeah,
no
yeah,
partial.
it's not going to fill the Great Salt Lake, but the thing that I think is that will really mean a lot more to me, or that I'll sort of note like, oh, okay, like we're doing this for real, is when the church starts to take xeriscaping or responsible landscaping a little bit more seriously at its chapels.
I agreed,
You
and
know,
I think that across the board, and I think they would set the standard because I swear, the church and local municipalities, we're always told. When I was living there, I was living in Ogden, and it was funny. We were always told, "Oh, you can only water at night, and only water these certain amount of
hmm
times." And then you
hmm
drive by the city water, and they're watering all times of day, and and sprinkler heads are broken, and then water's just being wasted at a
sure.
massive level. And you think, what is my one little bit at my house doing when you're doing a big park, and it's causing it. And I used to do that in Ogden all the time, and that you'd see the church doing that. So if the church and the local municipalities and the state could all get together and agree, hey, we're going to set the right example, I think then the suit, everyone else would follow suit. But
Yeah.
without them setting that example, I think there's always going to be the people who are great at it. They're the people who recycle all the time.
hmm
They're the
hmm
same, but it's getting the regular people like me. I'll tell you, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't recycle, and I
Sure.
probably wouldn't pay attention to the water
Or
as
yeah,
well as I
or
do,
make it to heaven. You
or
know,
make it to heaven. No, that's true.
so at the church that I go to, it's a stake center, and they have a gorgeous field that is adjacent to the building. It's where they do this awesome thing in the summertime where they invite the entire community. So I'm not anti-grass, right? And then they have like soccer, and they do all sorts of young men, young women's events, and everything there. And there's a Bowery, and all the wards have their parties there. It's great. I love that. We also have a mile-long park strip that no one has ever walked on, done anything with it, and it just soaks up the water. It's just a waste of water. When I had my Temple Recommend interview a couple months ago, I said to the stake president, I said, here's the deal. Can we be responsible? What if the ward in the Bowery, the building next door, we said, hey, we're having an educational class on xeriscaping, and this is what it is, and this is what it isn't, and this is how you responsibly do it. And then even more, like, because of the church's buying power, we're going to make this that much more affordable for you to be able to xeriscape. your lawn, or this person is going to come and do this. The church has hired this person, or this person volunteers and is in this community, right? And be able to do that. That would make a greater difference in our area if it's top-down leadership, as opposed to people like me going, hey, have we ever thought about this? What about this? Could we do this? Might we do this? And so that's the thing that I think about, is I see this gorgeous field, which I love, I'm grateful that we have, and then all of this other stuff that I'm just like, we water that and it looks great, and I love a green lawn. But even here at my house, I've got patches that I am taking the lawn out because it just takes too much water. I'm going to do other things, native, responsible, other things. Part of that is a cost measure because water is increasingly more expensive. But the other part of it is just sort of being responsible and being kind. What I hope doesn't happen, and this is what I think a lot of people's fear is if I don't use it, then they're going to make it available for someone else, and it's just going to end up being wasted anyway. And that's where I think that we also have to have a tremendous amount of regulation so that we're not, doing all this and then having, just all for naught.
I'll tell you, here in Texas, it's different. So, in Ogden, I never paid for what we called secondary water.
Mm-hmm.
It came from Pineview. It was part of the way they established Ogden or whatever, coming out of Pineview. We paid for house water, but we didn't pay for secondary water.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there is no difference.
Mm-hmm.
If I use a lot of water in my yard, it's coming out of my paycheck. It's not.
Yeah.
So that's a way to do it, is maybe put secondary water into and put a little meter on it. So
Sure.
now you have to pay.
Even if it's monitored, I know they've done tests to say you use less, even if it's just monitored, even if
you pay for it at a certain time, like you get it for free if you water it for your limited amount of time in the middle of the night, because that's one of the problems is a lot of people water during the day and much of it evaporates away anyway. So it's a big deal, but it's a bigger deal in my opinion, especially in Utah, but also here in Texas and in the center of the United States, than global warming ever is. I really don't. Well, I'm not saying global warming isn't a big issue and that we shouldn't recycle. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying if you want something that you can have impact on now, the water situation in the West is a much bigger issue than global warming is, that affects you personally. And that's why I'm glad the church is stepping up, and I hope that they do more. I hope this is signs that more things are coming, but we'll see.
Also a water problem, but in an entirely different way. Over in California, there is a mission called Operation Mountain Strong, and I'm not sure if you've heard about this. Right around Lake Arrowhead, California, which is in the San Bernardino Mountains, they have had incredible amounts of snowfall. So much, in fact, that there were people that were trapped and suffering up in the mountains, literally could not get to food and or out of where they were. Snowed in. I think we romanticize it. Oh, wouldn't it be so great? I wouldn't have to go to work. I couldn't do anything, whatever.
Until you don't have any food.
Until you don't have food, you can't go anywhere. There's no sort of power and you can't communicate with anyone. So this bishop, his name is Bishop Samuelian, Spencer Samuelian. I'm not sure how to say it. No big deal. He's got a helicopter. He's the bishop of the Laguna Beach Ward, Laguna Niguel, California stake. And he said, you know what? I'll use my helicopter. I'll go take those people some food. And so various religious communities there in and around the Laguna Niguel stake gathered food and other supplies. And then he got in his helicopter and took them to the people up around Lake Arrowhead, saving their lives and providing the rescue that they need. Now, obviously couldn't rescue and take them out of there. It wasn't in that dire need of circumstances, but being able to.
Now that's what you call ministering.
Yeah. I mean, I laughed a little bit when I was like, oh yeah, sure, of course, the bishop has got a helicopter, geez, but pretty cool. Called to serve, however it is, wherever it is, and if you got a helicopter, you bet. Get in that thing, take some supplies to Lake Arrowhead. It also seems like it's going to be the next T.C. Christensen movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the 18th Miracle
with what's his name? I went to school with him. Um, he's the guy in all of them. He's the
Jason Wade.
Jason Wade.
Okay.
The problem I can't remember his name is because I know his his name before was Jason Wade.
Jason Nielsen.
Yeah, Jason Nielsen.
Yeah.
He was in my he was in my building. Was 60th and 70th ward. He was in the 70th ward, but we went to elementary school. And I hung out with his brother Jason. I used to go over to their house and play video games because they had all the big stand-up video games.
Of course. So
you got to go to the Nielsen's house.
We used to lift weights together, me and Jason Wade.
Oh, nice.
Yep. That's why I'm so swole. You got to see this on the Patreon, patreon.com/The Cultural Hall to see the video of this.
Great family. Good family.
Yeah, incredible family. Incredible. Yep. Melanie, the whole crew of the
Daphne.
Family. Yeah, Daphne, sweet. The Nielsens are going to be like, oh, this is creepy.
Why are we talking about?
Yeah. What other news stories do you have, sir?
So there was a Pew Research Center poll that recently came out, and it was focused. It's published on the Jewish News Syndicate, but it was focused on several different religions in the U.S. And the poll actually stated that out of all the religions, all the from Jewish to Catholics to other Christian denominations and Muslims and Mormons or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, what is the perception in there? And it did show that the Jewish had some of the highest favorable ratings amongst non-Jewish Americans, so outside of their faith, obviously. And so they were 42% favorable, 34% somewhat favorable, and 7% unfavorable. So that's pretty good. They're either indifferent or they really like Jews. So in that regard, it's probably nice that anti-Semitism isn't as big, at least according to this poll, as it could be, even though I know there's probably pockets where it's rising. But among Catholics, or they among non-Catholics are 26% favorable, 21% were unfavorable. So that drops a little bit. Muslims were 17%. I'm sorry. 17% favorable as opposed to 22% favorable. And where Mormons fell, we were just 14% favorable and 26% unfavorable. Now, what I don't know, and it doesn't really say in here, is how has that changed over time? But it feels to me that that's lower compared to what it would have been maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I just thought it was interesting. It doesn't go into why or why not or anything like that, because the article is mostly about the Jewish and their had the positivity, but it wasn't really interesting that we are now in a significantly unfavorable status with non-Mormons throughout the country. And so, and I'm sure that there's probably different things you can think of to do. Hopefully that can change, but maybe some of it is because once we get you liking us, we pull you in and baptize you. I don't know.
Yeah, we really get liked by you. There's a great episode of Mormonland produced by the Salt Lake Tribune, where they go into the history of this and the significance of some of the things. One of the things to note is that Muslims, we love Muslims more than other people. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we look favorably upon them more than any other group does, which is interesting, unique, and certainly shows the focus of the last few years, that the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has said, listen, we love everybody. Our interfaith efforts have been with everyone, but it's been significant when we have partnered with Muslim organizations, groups, and what do you call them? Mosques, I guess, or areas.
I don't know. I don't know.
The equivalent of a Muslim stake is what I'll call it. So I thought that was significant, and it gets real nerdy on that podcast. So if you're like, man, I need more stats than what's being delivered right now, I encourage you to go check that out. Peggy Fletcher Stack does a great job. And that other guy's okay too. This was interesting. The Gathering of Tribes, a 2-day conference down in Mesa, Arizona. I'm not sure if this is the first time that this has ever occurred. but it's 700 indigenous members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints gathered together with the charge to build the kingdom of heaven by fortifying gospel principles and traditional values. Cindy
Nice.
Quinney of Calgary, Alberta said, "I see this gathering as a spiritual lifeline. This was an opportunity for my brothers and sisters to come together, find more hope, and move forward." There were 30 North American indigenous communities that were represented, as well as indigenous people to the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Samoa, Tonga, Peru, New Zealand, and the Maya, Totonaca, Purapica, Aztec of Mexico, according to event planner Shane Manning of Gilbert, Arizona. The gathering was organized by indigenous people for those who see themselves in the promises of the Book of Mormon about the gathering of Israel and the many roles that different tribes play in that. We wanted people to be able to claim their own identities as they feel appropriate. I just thought that was cool. I think
That is
that's so
awesome.
great. Such a great opportunity for members of the church to be able to get together. Because as much as we go, yeah, we're all the, everyone, we love like, I think it's great to be able to meet in groups like that, like the Genesis group for Black members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that can be a tremendous support. I think the gathering of tribes for the indigenous people, I think that's amazing.
I think leaning into your heritage is a great thing, as long as it doesn't lean into where my heritage is better than your heritage kind of thing. But leaning into your heritage and like I was thinking this week, and it came up on my Facebook page because it's St. Patrick's Day a few weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking it's nice that everyone gets to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but I don't wear green because I'm Scottish.
I draw the line at green, everybody. I draw the line.
I will not wear green. I'll wear Scottish blue. I guess I'm wearing Scottish blue today. Jeez. I'm just kidding around.
Yeah. So a couple just quick interesting sort of stories to bring in here, and I know you've got one or two, maybe more.
Just one more.
One more. I'll mention this. There was. I love clickbait ads or articles because I of course we'll click on them. Vintage nude Mormon bodybuilders was the name of this headline,
and you got to see that.
Well, here's what I thought was interesting. Mike Sill and Walt Needham, both members of the church from Salt Lake City. Mike was junior Mr. Utah in 1955. And at the age of 21, and Mr. Utah the following year, Walt, 2 years younger, was also later a winner of Junior Mr. Utah. So what, right? So these guys were members of the church, blah, 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 whatever. Mike Sill, he later served as an assistant chaplain in the National Guard. Okay, not a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints thing. Then also served as a Mormon missionary in England, and he posed for Arnold Freiberg's famous paintings for Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Who knew? Who knew a vintage nude model was what Arnold Freiberg used to do those 10 commandments?
Well, I guess how else are you going to see all the definition and everything else? But that's really interesting. I mean, and those Freiberg pictures, whether you're talking about stuff he did for Cecil B. DeMille or stuff he did for the Book of Mormon, those guys are ripped,
shredded.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting. The Europe Central Area Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints released the following statement a couple weeks ago. It was with great sadness that we learned of last night's accident in Hamburg. If you haven't followed this story, it's just terrible. On behalf of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Europe, we express our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the victims. We mourn with those who have lost a loved one. We pray for all who have been affected in any way by this heartbreaking tragedy and hope that comfort and peace will in due time overcome pain and fear. This after the shooting in Hamburg. I thought that was interesting to note that the European presidency would say something like that about something like that significant. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints supported supported education projects in 74 countries, 306 projects worldwide. just a couple numbers that I think that sometimes we kind of look past. And really, it's just a way for me to be able to make this next story a little easier for you to listen to. Mormon swinger Taylor Frankie Paul pleads not guilty to felony counts of domestic violence and aggravated assault from her February 18th arrest. You followed this story a little bit with me.
Mm-hmm.
She says, the last few weeks have been the hardest weeks of my life. I wanted to thank all those who have been by my side, those who reached out, and the strangers that stopped to hug me. I've been silently working on healing, therapy, a blessing, starting classes, and got on antidepressants to help me during this time. I'm starting to feel progress and will be back to work soon. If you don't know, this came about Taylor Frankie Paul, 4 million folks on TikTok follower, the mom talk sensation. She was charged after allegedly striking Mortensen, that is her boyfriend, Dakota Mortensen, with a wooden playset and 3 heavy metal chairs during a fight at her home.
Are they Metallica chairs?
Nope, just metal. One of the metal chairs allegedly fell and hit one of Taylor Frankie Paul's kids, who was sitting on the couch during the alleged argument, leaving them with a, quote, goose egg on the head. She was charged with 2 felony counts of domestic violence in the presence of a child and a felony count of aggravated assault. Her scheduling conference for Paul is set for March 31st, so coming up later this week. Anyway,
I wonder if the nature and tone of her posts will change.
Yeah, and really, and I've expressed this before, I just I think that it's sort of sad, because to me it seems sort of walked out the life of a social media influencer, right? And all of the pressures to perform and provide content and share everything so openly.
We got to get those many more followers.
Yeah.
And that's being fed by the advertising that's
Yep,
being fed
yep.
to you. And
Yeah. And so I hope she gets the, the mental help that she needs. Sounds like she's on antidepressants, which is great. That will help her, the counseling, all the things. And I hope that she, can get wrapped around the things that she
Well, hope for the
needs
best
to do.
for her, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me what you've got, sir. You said you have one.
So, okay, we're coming up on General Conference, right? And they're going to read a lot of names. And the names will all have a middle initial. But do you know when that started?
No, nor do I know why we do it.
No. So originally, if you go way before, even when the church started back into the 1700s and before, middle names weren't very much a thing. In fact, the founding fathers, most of them didn't have middle names. They were just George Washington. It was not George K. Washington.
George Herbert Washington.
George Herbert Washington. Yeah. So middle names were a thing back in a long time ago, but mostly for royalty. And there was even a time in UK history when it was illegal for non-royal people to have a middle name.
Okay.
It was actually illegal. So moving through that, but in the 1800s, it became a lot more common, even though early members of the church, some did, some didn't have middle names. They were more casual how they referred to people. So you didn't say Joseph Smith, you said Brother Joseph or Brother Brigham or Brother Taylor. That's when things started changing, is when you have so many Johns, you can't just call him Brother John, because there's 17 Johns in the neighborhood. So Brother Taylor, John Taylor might have been more appropriate. So as that moved up, but it wasn't even. And so in the first conference in April 80, only 32% of them actually had middle names, and some of them used them, some of them didn't. It moved up to 62% by 1897, and then in April 1914, the last person who had a middle name but didn't use it, all the 32 speakers at General Conference used the middle initial, except for Rudger Judd Clausen, listed simply as Rudger Clausen, and he was the last general authority to not use his middle initial. And obviously the main reason why is it became very good way to distinguish between people with similar names, right? Joseph Smith Jr., Joseph Smith Sr., Joseph F. Smith, Joseph Fielding Smith, all those different ways of differentiating people. So it makes a lot of sense why they do it. But so there's some later ones that still didn't use it, like Elder LeGrand Richards, even and Ulysses Soares. You notice he doesn't use his middle name. So there's some outliers, but I thought it was very interesting that because this is the kind of crap that my brain goes to. I've actually sat in general conference and gone, why do I always use middle names? And then there's people who I know people who literally their middle name is just the initial, like Todd D, but there's no
there's
D,
nothing that D
just
stands for. It's
D,
just D.
D,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So interesting in the dive while you were telling me about that, I wanted to see who the first prophet of the church is that had a middle initial, because Joseph Smith, did he have a middle name?
I don't think so. I don't know.
No. Brigham Young? Nope. John Taylor? Nah. Wilford Woodruff? Also no. Lorenzo Snow? Nah. Now here's what's interesting and what I had never realized until literally this moment. Joseph F. Smith, the sixth prophet of the church. You know what the F stands for?
It's not Fielding, is it?
Yes.
Well, I did know that then. That's you were throwing me off because you asked me. I'm like, but that's why they later called Joseph Fielding Smith and didn't use the initial, because it would have been you have to distinguish between the two somehow.
Yeah, so there's Joseph F. Smith, who is Joseph Fielding Smith, and then the other prophet, Joseph Fielding Smith, who is also Joseph Fielding Smith.
Yep. I did know that, but then you made me question and second guess my own knowledge.
What I'm truly sad about in this moment is I was really hoping that I was going to search Joseph Smith's middle name and just had never thought about it and find out that his middle name is like Herbert or something like that, right? It's just this name that we never use. Joseph Old Major Smith.
Joseph Petrie.
Joseph P. Smith. All right, so a couple quick things. The Mormon Battalion has been added to the church history biographical database. You can find information on nearly 600 Latter-day Saint men, women, and children who participated in the Mormon Battalion from Iowa Territory to the Pacific Coast in 1846 and 1847. That's a big deal. This I think is interesting. There's a woman who lives in the UK whose name is Ashlyn, who has been engaged now to Joe. She's not from Utah, yet her name is spelled like she's from Utah. She is, in fact, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They were engaged on the turf moor pitch of the Burnley Football Club. I don't know, it's a lot of UK words and terms and stuff like that. The only reason I bring it up is apparently they're part of some show called Here Comes the Mormons over on the BBC, and her name is Ashlyn, spelled like she's from Utah, so it's worth noting. That, and then finally the Reverend Amos C. Brown, representing the NAACP, and President Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ are standing next to each other. Why? Why are they standing next to each other? Well, because President Russell M. Nelson is going to be receiving an award on April 13th, 2023. He is going to be receiving the King Chapel's Gandhi King Mandela Peace Prize, named for Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela. According to a release published by Morehouse College, the prize is awarded to a person who promotes peace and positive social transformation through nonviolent means. This individual uses their global leadership to affirm peace, justice, diversity, and pluralism. President Nelson was specifically selected as the inaugural recipient of this prize, quote, for his global efforts in abandoning attitudes and actions of prejudice against any group of God's children through non-violent ways. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that ceremony is available to be watched online or maybe in a replay. April 13th, 2023 is when that comes out, when he receives that award. A lot of people giving him flack for receiving that, because you have pictures of Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King, and then Russell M. Nelson, and it's really like one of these kids is not like the other sort of picture. But I mean, he's doing a tremendous,
kind of cool. It's pretty cool that he's getting that award. I mean, he's definitely changed some perceptions within the church, and I think he's reached out in a lot of ways. So that's
Yeah,
good.
I don't think we've arrived yet, but I think that
No,
there's a lot of great work
but
that
he's
can
done a
be
lot of
done.
work towards it. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
So
laid the groundwork for some.
congratulations. And you know, if that link does come available, know that we'll do that in a future episode of Articles of News. We'll talk about that, maybe even share a little bit. Worth noting too that in a couple of episodes, it is our birthday episode. That is 12 years of the Cultural Hall. So if you want to send a note for our birthday episode, contact at theculturalhall.com. You're welcome to do that.
Or is it going to receive the priesthood?
Well, I mean, technically it already could because it knew that it was going to turn 12 this year.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
right.
been eligible for a few months. Don't be sacrilegious.
Sorry.
No, but 12 years. So if
Wow.
there's ever been anything that's mattered to you, send an email, contact at theculturalhall.com.
And I listened to the first episode.
Yeah. Way back when.
Way
12
back
years
when.
ago. Can you believe that? I've been
That was a
married
long-
twice in the time we've been doing this thing.
I know.
Yeah.
And you got to get a third one in before it's over.
Yeah. I've lived in 4 different houses in the time
I've only
we've
lived
been
in
doing this
2.
thing. Yeah. Contact at theculturalhall.com. What's your general conference predictions? Anything?
I think I don't know. I don't feel like there's anything big coming down the road right now.
Okay.
I think it's going to be some laying down kind of what they've been laying down for a while, but maybe they're going to, give women the priesthood.
Nah. Do you really think that?
No.
No.
I think I don't think that will happen like people think it'll happen in the sense that we're going to ordain women as in the priesthood. I think though the better clarification will come for women's role that already exists with priesthood power. And I think in the future we will know those roles, and that those roles will be different. Things that we always assumed has to be a priesthood holder doesn't always have to be a priesthood holder, and things like that. So there's going to be a flattening of some of the responsibilities and some of that in the future. I don't know about this particular general conference, but I do see that coming. But I don't see it ever changing in the sense that they'll be ordained in the offices necessarily. But we'll see.
I'll keep my temple predictions for the next block when Corey K. Ward comes in, talks about temple news and the temple ticker, and then makes those temple predictions. But I think for now, what I'd say, I think conversely to you, I think we're gonna get a big thing. I don't think it's I don't know exactly where it is. Maybe a word of wisdom thing.
Maybe they'll clarify
Like taking
caffeine.
care of yourself.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't think that they'll delineate like 50 milligrams of caffeine a day is the thing. I don't think it's going to be something like that. So here are my 2 guesses. I'll give you 2 guesses. I think that we're going to get an incredible amount about environmental stewardship, which I would love. Or I think we'll get hey, the word of wisdom is it's guidance to help you live healthier. So let's live healthier. That's going to be my guess. I'm betting heavy-handed one of those things with this general conference.
Interesting. Yeah, I see. It feels like I feels like I nothing major. They're going to just double down on things they've already been talking about, I think.
Yep. Don't
So we'll
forget
see
at the Cultural Hall on Twitter. That's where you can likely join me. I think I'm doing Sunday morning. You're going to do Sunday afternoon. All the various folks in the Cultural Hall going to take a turn. Tweet at the Cultural Hall. It's our favorite time. Every 6 months, we bust that thing loose. Get crazy. Find us. Follow us at the Cultural Hall over on Twitter. Andrew, thank you for your time this morning.
Space heaters are the perfect housewarming gift.
Boo.